So Colin Simms, there's for anyone listening, international audience, I suppose, and there is a lot of interest in crime. The UDA, ostensibly a paramilitary group dedicated to the union, that's very much a secondary or a tertiary aim at this stage, has morphed very much into an organised crime gang with strengths in various parts of Northern Ireland. Now, the South-East Antrim UDA is often described as a semi-autonomous region, but it's also one of their stronger. I hesitate to use the word unit, but they're strong.
Yeah, they're a breakaway from the mainstream UDA. They broke away a number of years ago after their former brigadier, John Gregg, was murdered, was part of a sort of an internal schism or feud within the UDA. So it's been a standalone unit since then. It's under the new brigadier, Gary Fisher. He took over from Gregg and has been in charge ever since. It's completely. It is a crime gang. Now, sort of any semblance of it being a sort of a paramilitary organisation is long gone. It is simply an organised crime gang. The paramilitary crime task force, not that long ago, described it as one of the most significant organised crime gangs in the country. And it has controlled a very lucrative drug racket covering Carrick, Larne, up as far as Rathcoole.
Just want to clarify something again, because I know there's a lot of interest, in Britain and in the Republic and in other areas. I mean, even there are leafy parts of Belfast who may not be aware of this. But in terms of the stronghold Larne, Carrickfergus, many people will have visited the castle and see this beautiful seaside town. My understanding from speaking to people on the ground is that, as in many areas, the UDA perhaps controls certain estates and certain parts of estates with an iron fist, and is present everywhere, but its influence somehow magically disappears outside these estates. So they are concentrated on working class housing estates. Or am I being very naive? Are they everywhere?
I think yes and no. I mean, they do. That's where their market is. Ostensibly, is in the estates. That's where they do their business. But I think it would be unfair to say that that drug business and clientele is restricted just to those housing estates. Drugs now are everywhere. And while, yes, you go down to Carrick, lovely, Carrick, the castle, and it all looks lovely, but it may not be obvious, but it's there everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, that's the thing. I suppose it's sight unseen. I mean, they're not standing on the street corner, although it is incredibly easy to get drugs in Carrickfergus, and not just Carrick, but in other towns across the country.
And there are other connections, because when we say the South-East Antrim, that's a title, but they do have connections in other places. And again, North Down is the leafier, richer part of Northern Ireland, is often known as the Gold Coast. But there are strongholds of the UDA even in North Down.
Yeah, it's sort of strangely unique to them. They have shall we say, a sort of a pod of South-East Antrim linked people that have been down there for some years. That was somewhat diluted. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was a feud involving a faction that was loyal to South-East Antrim UDA, but it fell out locally, shall we say, in the Newton Ards area, and resulted in a feud. So it's not as strong as it was, but there is still a faction down there that would be linked to South-East Antrim UDA.
And again, people mightn't be aware when sometimes these feuds, they can be concentrated in very small areas, but they can result in many families having to move en masse for one reason or another, kind of a mini pogrom.
Yeah, well, literally that feud. And thankfully nobody lost their life in it, but people were attacked, homes were attacked, property was attacked, cars were attacked, and there were literally dozens of such attacks across Newton Ards, Bangor, down the Ards Peninsula. And yes, people were forced from their homes. People had to leave their area, find refuge elsewhere in Northern Ireland. And particularly those who were seen to be connected to the South-East Antrim unit or faction in Newton Ards, they all had to leave their homes, were forced from their homes.
So you can see why people keep their heads down, because obviously in the vast majority of any estate, the people have nothing to do with this, but people will avoid any, being caught up in any of this because they just want to get on with their lives and go to work. Now, Colin Simms, you've been writing about Colin Simms. He's been long described as a UDA enforcer. What is the latest with Colin Simms?
Well, Colin Simms was an integral part of a very powerful South-East Antrim unit, stretching back to 2011, 2012, going forwards. They controlled the drugs operation down there, and he was known as an enforcer. He was the kind of the guy that made sure everybody paid their bills, essentially. He was the muscle. Had a reputation for being a hard man, prone to violence. So he was very much in there and very much at the top of the tree. Then, again, in 2016, a feud erupted, internal UDA feud. And that was really the start of the sort of the breakup of the absolute iron control that South East Antrim had on the trade. It sort of fractured the organisation somewhat, as always happens in a feud. There are people who are loyal to one side and not loyal to the other. It did result in the murder of Jody Gilmore, who was a former UDA commander down there. So it did fracture it, and Simms' star started to wane a little bit. He went against the leadership in a few things. He was subjected to a punishment shooting at one stage.
So he was shot by his own organisation.
Yeah, on the orders of his own, the leadership of South East Antrim. Yeah,
and most people would fall out, heavily if you get shot.
Yeah, and exactly, and that kind of set the tone, and it set him on a different path. He became a bit of an outcast. He moved to Larne, but then he has come back. He has he still had people loyal to him, and he's involved in a bit of a power play because the leadership of South East Antrim were not as strong as they were. Fisher suffered serious health issues, so his grip had slipped. So the organisation was not as strong and as tight as it used to be. So Simms saw an opportunity to muscle in and has become a significant player in the last couple of years.